Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Infrastructure Network. My name is Chad Smeltzer. I am your host. Today, we're going to talk about lead and copper rules with Chuck Hansen, who's the CEO of Electroscan, and Michael Simpson, who is with the M.E. Simpson Company. Thanks for joining me, guys. I appreciate it. Anyone that's in the comments and our audience is watching this, we're going to get in some very interesting conversations about lead and water systems, EPA rules, things like that. So if you have any comments that you'd like to bring up that we should address, please make those comments. And then if there's any concerns, you can reach out to us afterwards and yell at us, scream at us, whatever you got to do. It is Christmas in July, so we're giving these gifts out as no charge, just so you know. But here we go. So guys, that AP, that Associated Press poll was that article that came out was wow. It was mind blowing. But I guess we should probably start out with Chuck. You should just give us your introduction. I know everybody probably knows you at this point, all these things, but let's start there with the intros.
Well, thanks, Chad. Thanks for having us. And good morning, everyone. I'm here from beautiful Galveston, where the Texas Rural Water Association is. And 40 years in the water business, I've never seen anything like this. In fact, the only time I've seen this before is when we had to do Y2K and change all of our systems over. So lead and copper rule revision is a major thing. But Chad, you mentioned a great thing. So there was an article in the AP about Providence, Rhode Island. And truth be known, we were there that same day that article was published.
Wow.
I think we were just one or two neighborhoods over. And, the issue, like we're seeing in so many places, and the whole topic of environmental justice is some utilities, without naming names, have basically replaced their side of the meter, their utility-owned meter, and in some cases, given the homeowner, the private property owner, the opportunity to change out their meter, at least from the main to the building footprint. And of course, a lot of money. We've been going through a lot of challenges. You don't have the money, or it's too expensive. You don't change yours. And I just came up with I found a study that was saying if you only change half of it, you are 3 times at risk of higher lead levels in your home by keeping your lead pipe there from the meter to the house. So just a major issue. And in California, where we have 0 utilities that found any lead in their lines, 0, in a 2018 California state mandated inventory of service lines, it is not surprising we are getting record lead readings in parts of California, including the East Bay. So this is a major issue coming up that I don't think we've really latched onto yet.
Well, we are definitely going to dig into more of this. It's going to get very interesting. Mike, you're up next, my man.
Hi, Mike Simpson. A lot of you know me or know our business, M.E. Simpson Company. We've been providing services, especially in the meter testing and leak detection world, for decades now. I've done this for 40 years, like Chuck. Both of us started when we were both in grade school. Very little. Certainly a hell of a lot skinnier, I can tell you that, but for me anyway. But Chuck's correct. I mean, the biggest thing I'm seeing across the country, and especially east of the Mississippi, is water utilities in general. And this is not a knock on anybody or a negative or or anything like that, disparagement. Water utilities, historically, the service line, be it from the curb, from the corpse stop in the street, or the property line / curb stop, sidewalk, whatever you want to call it, in front of the house, those sections of service line pipe have always been, quote, owned by the homeowner. And so most utilities, or a lot, I shouldn't say most, or that could be most, really never documented any of that. You're a home builder, you build houses, you follow the plumbing specs of that community or state or combo. All you did is go to the water department, pick up the water meter, pay for the water meter, and said it. You're the home builder. If we're going to go back to especially the housing boom starting in 1946 after World War II ended. And that's kind of what happened. Well, we'll fast forward to 2023 today, and we're finding out, and Chuck and I were finding this out last year as we're talking to people. Most people's records don't reflect the pipe material in that area, be it from the property line into the house or all the way from the street connect into the house, doesn't matter. Nobody knows what it is. And consequently, Chuck's correct, that's the problem. So I don't care if you made a point repair, if you did this or you did that or anything, if the whole run hasn't been changed, the lead is still there. So California doing a survey, and I'm not picking on them, I got a lot of friends out there. I'm guessing they checked everything from the meter box at the property line back into the street, and they were thumbs up, good to go. And again, this isn't disparaging anyone because it's just a fact and it's a concern. And now, by law, passed by Congress, and I think about 2015, if I remember correctly, you have to know what the material is of the entire service line. Congress didn't care who owned it. They just basically said in statute, you water department now are going to tell me exactly what it is. And then if it's lead, as Chuck, and everyone listening knows, if it's lead, starting in 2027, you've basically got about 10 years or so, depending on size, to remove it and pull it all out at your expense, not the homeowners.
And Mike, when you take a look at the analogy you just said about just looking at the utility side, I don't think a lot of people understand, but the number that just came off in the 7th annual drinking water survey that the EPA published of this 9.2 million lead pipes, that really, when you look at the details, that is just the utility side.
Right.
We've got 100 million homes out there. And so the true number for lead, and of the tests that we're running right now, there is zero correlation between what that utility material is versus estimating or finding a true probability on that side. The number is probably closer to 20 or 30 million.
Yeah, I was going to say, we have talked to town after town, municipality, whatever you want to label it as. I've been talking to them for 20 months now, and I just sent out packages to a couple of them. They've got 7,000 services. It's a nice little community, a very nice place. 7,000 services, no records, no knowledge. And it's because that's just the way it was done decades ago. It's not the people in charge now. It's not their fault. They didn't, this is something that happened when those homes went up starting in the 50s, basically through today. Nobody wrote it down. Nobody took stock of it. Because that wasn't, they cared about the water meter to measure, and you followed the plumbing code. That's the thing. Now, you can most all these communities, I can eliminate a chunk of homes just based on building records. If I know it was built in 1988 forward, I've got a 99% chance that it's copper. That is copper or some type of plastic, PVC, PE pipe, whatever, they bought.
Yeah.
Because by then lead had been outlawed in 86. And so I give it a 2-year buffer of everybody using whatever stock they had laying on the floor and hiding, oh, that must have been a mistake. Yeah, that's, there's nothing we can do for stuff that happened 40 years ago. It's too late now. Now we have to deal with today. And one of the big issues I tell the entire audience is I mean, I'm seeing all kinds of things happening where people are sending out postcards and asking the homeowner to go in the basement and take a picture. I've got towns that are going and they're buying the 3M lead swab test at Home Depot, and they're wiping the piece of pipe coming up out of the floor in the basement. I've seen that. I get what everybody's trying to do. Everybody's scrambling. Everybody's trying to do something. The only thing I caution everybody is that's great, that little stub coming out of the floor. In theory, that's a great idea because that's likely the last place pipe has ever been changed. But I also will take you to the home that spent $50,000 remodeling their basement to make it a cool place, and the water meter was in the way. Their plumber moved the water meter from here to over there, and that's copper pipe. And so you just labeled it as a copper pipe, not realizing that 8 years ago when you did your big remodel, that it was a lead piece over here, but you wouldn't know that because that's now behind a wall that no one can see because you prettied up your basement, which is great. Yeah, I'm not just disparaging. I'm just sitting there going, folks, you're there's risks involved with this, not only for the water department, but I'm going to be on the homeowner side because I'm like Chuck. If I live here, I want to know what in God's name the water's coming through because I don't want any lead leaching, and so I'm I want to know exactly what it is, and that's why Chuck and I have been kind of parroting and telling people that we figure the National Association of Realtors and the title companies are going to start wanting it on disclosure forms because they don't want to insure for it and get sued. So I'm hoping that's coming next.
This is going to be interesting. Wow, there's a lot of stuff going on. If we look at the history, right, of this, how lead progressed, how funding progressed in the 80s, you start there in the 80s. Obviously, you mentioned 1986, the lead was banned. Was that out of the plumbing codes? Do you know if that was out of the plumbing codes or just out of, okay, so out of the plumbing
codes. It was removed from the plumbing codes. It was to be never used again. And in theory, it wasn't used again.
Then in 1991, EPA comes out and says all lead pipes need removed, right? They're like, okay, all lead pipes need removed. The American Water Works Association comes out and says, look, you don't need it all removed. You only need a portion of it removed. And they lobby and they get, obviously, the ruling changed, right? So then that's in 1994. Flint starts in 2014. That's a lot of time of lead pipes not getting replaced or changed. And then obviously Flint, Michigan changed everything. So that's where we are now. It's like we're dealing with this massive amount of lead issue.
The thing is, I'm not going to pick on AWWA because
right, I'm not.
At a point, everybody was using phosphates or whatever, coating the insides of the pipes, and that has worked really well. I mean, lead poisoning has really been the bane of existence from lead paint in houses, has been the biggest problem that's been for decades. And what changed Flint was they changed the water chemistry because somebody got the bright idea to save money. And instead, they actually poisoned their citizenry, not very bright people.
Yeah.
Very sad. It's a very sad story when you actually dig into it. It was beyond criminal negligence, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion.
But let me just say this about Flint. I had the opinion a couple of months ago with all of the folks from DC, the governor coming down, that Flint had their act together. We've had now small startup companies, that are going public and doing other things based on their work in Flint. And yet 60 days ago, we've got a new lawsuit in Flint, Michigan, claiming that 20,000 of the 30,000 connections still need to be assessed for lead. So it's something that these environmental groups are going to be coming after every water company in the nation. and they're going to be looking at your records, and they're going to be seeing, because part of this October 16th, 2024 deadline is you will have an online map, a GIS, that will bring up every address, that will split that if there is a meter or if it's from the basement, and tell whether your pipe is lead or not, or whether it's unknown. And so you're going to be having the realtors and home buyers and home sellers, everybody's brother, looking at that map. And I'll just say the problem with our GISs, and again, not as a dig to ESRI, but Jack Dangerman had a great little tool 30 years ago called this near command. And what it was able to do, you had a parcel maps of your entire city. So you had and in some cases, building footprints of those parcel maps. They did flyovers, what have you. They had a little program called a near command that would take the centroid of each of those parcels and draw a line to its closest water main. Nobody had the money to go ahead and digitize service connections. Nobody had the time, nobody had the patience, so they used the near command. So what we have are maps that you talk to the operation guys like I've only been doing and Mike has only been doing for 40 years. Oh, don't look at the maps for that. They're not correct, because in a lot of cases, it was a random line drawn closest to it, and their water main is actually in the back easement, or it's on the side of the property, or it's some of the location, or it's married up to somebody else. So GIS cannot be a reliable issue. We're looking at actual physical verification for these things, going out and seeing what's there.
Wow. It's a lot of stuff going on with all this information. What I wanted to bring up though is you guys have mentioned something in previous conversations we were having, that the Realtor Association is going to start looking at this, and this makes sense. Obviously, as you go to sell a home, you don't want to be that real estate agent selling a home that has lead issues. And Mike, you've made a mention of like these faucets having lead in the faucets. So now we have all that. So what are you guys, with this Realtor Association getting involved, not wanting to sell lead homes, obviously, what's that going to look like, do you think?
One in comments, Tom Poe from North Carolina just pointed out, they're still in the middle of a housing boom going on where he lives and his utility. And they're also renovating the target homes. The vintage homes are all being renovated. And so it's, this is the time to know what the material, the services are, and document them, be it copper, be it lead, be it galvanized, be it some form of plastic type pipe is, I don't know. And I know we just got a comment, can any utility realistically practically check all the service lines from the point all the way to the house, the water meter? And I would have to say, yeah, there's the tools and the technology, but the Gopi, to tell you, Nathan, it's an arduous financial task because it's going to take time and money, and it's a real thing. But actually, you look at the law. This is not an EPA rule that just EPA made up, folks. This is codified in legislation passed by the United States Congress and signed by the president, that you have to know what this material is of these service lines. Yeah. It's not made up.
But Mike, you brought up a great point when you were talking about the age of the housing, and really kind of to take that one step further, the strategy, if you want the biggest bang for the buck, go after where the lead is going to be. You don't have to have an AI model to do that, because we have so many real estate records that are out there that have stratified by decade what it is. You take a town like Sacramento. We're headquartered in Sacramento. And if I just wanted to know the number of homes, there's about 200,000 homes, housing units in the city of Sacramento, population 500,000. Of the housing units built before 1969, 20 years before the deadline, they've got 50,000 housing units that were constructed before 1969. 50,000. Those are the places that you want to start. And those are the ones that you would want to test first, and look at those. And so, this is if you want to know the site to actually go, put in your city, put in your county, to mirror, to know what your stratified housing units are. Send me an email, chuck@electricscan.com. I'll send you the link back. And they've graded the states. The other thing, Chad, going back to your point, what is the National Real Estate Group going to be doing? Well, it really is in the hands of the states, because we've got 4 states right now that demand, regardless of the EPA requirement, environmental disclosures for lead service lines. 4 states. That number is going to explode. They were recently graded by an environmental group as A-minuses, as reporting environmental hazards and lead services. So you want to find out where your state is at and what their requirements are. Is it voluntary? Is it mandatory? Send me an email. We'll send you a little white paper on that. So, there's some states that are already doing this right now. And so that's why we're getting almost as many calls by realtors. Hey, I've got a buyer. What's the language they put in for disclosure? How do we have the seller disclose this thing? And when it's a seller market, the seller will go with another bid. If it's a buyer's market, you can ask for anything and get it. There's no legal ground for it except for these 4 states. So, how many homes are going to be sold this year? I think the number is like 6 million. I almost guarantee, with the slowness of the uptake of utilities, no disrespect, I've been working with utilities all my life, I think you're going to see realtors and trying to justify those 6 million homes so they don't have a lawsuit, they're not getting sued. The buyer isn't able to sue the seller because of a non-disclosure issue on whether their pipes are lead or not. There's a big lobbying group in Washington called the National Association of Realtors, and they do a lot of political donations. So if you've got an elected and appointed official that wants to stay in their seat come the next election year, I think this is going to be a hotbed issue come election time.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say, going back to Gopi's question, it's a realistic question. How are you going to inventory all these? Is it realistic? And that's the tough part. This is not typical, but it is atypical of a mandate from the federal government. They didn't tell you how to get it done. They just told you had to get it done. And so, yes, this is going to take, it's an undertaking. It's a financial undertaking, but it's a requirement that has to be done. And I always liken it this way from a political perspective. And this is a very simple political perspective. And I'll use Flint, sadly, as my example. There's no politician in America that wants to be on television because they voted against poisoning little children. No one is going to stand up and vote, no, we're not doing this, because you're going to be a poster boy or girl for poisoning little children and ruining their IQ and damaging them because you let them drink tainted water with lead contamination.
Yeah.
So as states go along, Chuck's correct, slowly but surely, states will continue to change the rules and keep ratcheting down. So my response to everybody is, you've still got plenty of time. The inventory that you turn in on October 16th can be your starting point. The EPA will continue to accept revisions and updates to the plan. You can keep telling them what's in your inventory. You don't have to do it all by October 16th. Yes, that's completely unrealistic, but you got to start sometime, and I'd suggest now, and start figuring out what you're going to do and how much risk you're willing to assume. It's like I said, I've seen the people that send the postcards to the homeowners. I'm not saying that's wrong. That's your choice. But again, it's up to you. But remember, as this keeps ratcheting down and what position, where do you want to be on the liability scale as the water department? I'm talking to water superintendents that are on this call, and engineers, water engineers, everybody from the water community. It gets down to a liability position. Where do you want to be? You get to decide. I don't get to tell you. Chet doesn't get to tell you. We're just telling you what we know. We're telling you about the tools that our teams have to find stuff. From there, it's up to you because you're the professionals running the show.
Hey, and the good news is you go to any EPA video, and they've got 2 or 3 already posted. They've been doing every couple of months to a speaker. They will always refer now to that October 16th deadline and the inventory as your preliminary inventory. So scan those things. I think we have a couple, it may be in the Q&A, but when the EPA themselves are looking at that, I do not think they're going to be changing the deadline, only because they're calling this as a preliminary deadline. So, that's going to be good news for everybody out there. But you will have to kind of get over that over the next couple of years.
Yeah, this is great stuff. I feel bad for the utilities. That's what I want to add in there, because they're under so much pressure right now with this lead, copper rules, the PFAS going on, with this forever chemical stuff that's going on. It is just a pressure cooker, it feels like, for these utilities. Like, what are they going to do, right? So, one of the things that we were talking about is the inventory, right? Is the inventory accurate? Are we at that? You guys were throwing out some numbers, maybe 10, 20 million service lines. Initially, it was like 6 million, what the EPA thought. Now we're at that level of 10, 20 million, maybe. Are the utilities maybe looking to, and I'm not saying that they're doing this intentionally, but would it make sense that they might want to inflate some of those numbers to get more funding? Because that's the struggle right now, is utilities getting funding. I mean, that's hard. That's a lot of work. Like, we need federal funding. Like, that's what they need. How are they going to get it?
Let me tell you something quick. So some states like California, you talk to the folks that are actually doling out money for their lead and copper rule revision. The money they're getting from the federal government, they take applications year round. Texas had a deadline of May 23rd. It was just announced this week, of the over 500 utilities that submitted requests for funds. What do you think the dollar value of the funding request was? You talk about an inflated number. I think it was over $250 billion. So
wait, what city or what? Wow, that's crazy.
Texas. And I think the allocation they had for this year was about 250 million. So you think the utilities are going to inflate funds? I think this is, California. I was born in the state of Washington and Olympia, to California. This is the new gold rush. So if you are a California utility, you're going to be wanting to get in your requests now. And there are some very specific things. For example, one of the options that a lot of people have thought was the only option in town was to excavate, dig, hydrovac above the ground to test for the pipe. So if you call the Office of California with the State Water Resources Board, if you want to dig, you will have to put your own environmental impact study together. So there has been no request for funding for any digging of any kind in the state of California as of about 30 days ago. I haven't checked with them recently. So, every state has a little bit different of a requirement. You've got to check that out. But I'm going to tell you, there are some states, New Mexico, we have systems going in every week in New Mexico for swordfish. And, they are going through. In fact, the city that we first sold one to, they called the state office. They said, "Thank you so much for calling." They go, "Why is that? Nobody's called us before." So I think people are now waking up, knowing they're getting speed dial numbers. They're getting their applications in. They're understanding what they need to do. And so, and we see it every day in just new orders of finding tools that can go ahead and reliably 100% make a call and do we have lead or not.
Wow, that's good information. Brad Weston talks that the UK has been trying to locate lead pipe services since the 80s and still a problem today. It's about 1.2 million people with lead service lines in the UK. Wow. That's America's going to quadruple that easily. It's going to be a lot.
Yeah. Larry Ollick commented that Newark spent $240 million on 24,000 lead service line replacements, and an average of $10,000 a service is about right. So, in reality, Texas's 250 billion probably is what they're believing the total number of lead service lines to be pulled out. So I don't know that they're inflating the number, but they're trying to, over the next 10 years, how are we going to get these all pulled out? Because that's the other problem. And Chad, you mentioned PFAS, and I know Chuck knows this too. The problem is now the final shoe that drops is, how do we control the cost of water and the rates? Because now the easy answer is, hey, we'll just raise the rates to pay to fix PFAS, and we can fix PFAS. We can treat the water. Hey, we can fix the lead service lines, pull them all out. It just costs money. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to raise the rates. Well, now you've caused a whole new firestorm, because what was once a $100 water bill just became a $250 water bill. And people, I've been to those, and everybody listening has been to those public meetings, and the people that stand up and decry any type of a rate increase, even if it's $5 a month, it's the worst thing that's ever happened to them, are the same people that have this in their hand, have this, and I'm sure their whole family has this. And I always laugh and go, I always want to know what your Cablevision bill is, because my Cablevision bill is something of the GDP of a small country every month. And the water bill at my house is still the cheapest utility bill, and that includes water, sewer, and our trash fee for our community. I'm telling you, it's the cheapest bill I've got every single month.
Nobody has 10 TVs like you do.
I know. I'm a spoiled child. I'm a child. I have to watch every program.
I got two words, and you probably hear these same two words with everybody you talk to, Mike. Early retirement. That's what the water utility guys are doing.
Yeah. That's
it. Early retirement.
Yeah. They're
right.
Like, I'm leaving. I'm not part of this nuttiness. But again, I go back to, to everybody listening. I mean, I think you all can. I mean, we can put on the chat will put up. Chuck and I sent them a bunch of links to the different EPA, and you can find it on EPA.gov. My goodness, this is not rocket science. You can find all the rules, all the timelines, all the materials. Chuck sent Chad a bunch of stuff that he's going to post as well. Yep. But the simple fact of the matter is, now the utility team, has to decide how you're going to attack this animal. And as they say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's what you're going to have to do. But you've got to start doing something, and you've got to go forward. And like I say, you've got to weigh all your risks and other issues with it. And I can tell you, the technology that's out there, I see some new technology emerging, but at this point in time, the only technology on a selfish set is the swordfish that can identify material. There's new technology coming that can tell you if it's lead or not lead, which that's a good thing. That's fine. And going and taking the lead swab and wiping the piece that comes through the floor, it's a step in the right direction. Okay. It doesn't give you the answer of the whole service, but it's a step in the right direction. But my point being, on a selfish set, because it's Chuck and I, and we can be selfish, the only tool that will tell you the material is the swordfish. but I'm not going to pick on anybody else's stuff or say bad things, because there's stuff out there, and God bless, but I'm telling all my water superintendent and engineer friends, where do you want your liability to lie?
It's true.
What do you want to protect for yourself and for your legacy and your community's legacy? You're the decider, not Mike Simpson.
So, Mike, let me ask you a question. So there have been a lot of changes for what states are now claiming, going back to Chad's comment, so that they can get more allocation and so on and so forth. What is the utility going to do? I have a very large client in the state of Florida. Right now, in the current version of lead and copper rule revision, utilities do not have to replace their goosenecks. Okay,
Correct.
That squiggly little pipe right before the main that then comes into the meter. And I have a 40-year-old head of the utility, one of the largest in the states of Florida. He said, Chuck, I want to be around here for a while, and I know eventually, if I still have a high lead reading in the house, it could very well, if I'm opening up the patient, to remove lead, I'm going to take care of the gooseneck. So what would you tell the utility? Should they do that? It's more money that they don't have because they haven't increased the bill. What you say?
I can say, just because of intimate knowledge, I'll use the city of Chicago as an example, which the vast majority of their 400,000 services are lead. They're at their replacement level. They're already doing replacement and have been. In fact, I just know they just let several zones, just let a bid they're getting ready to award a whole group of zones that contractors are going to be. I can assure you, they are replacing the service line from the water main all the way into the house, period. They're leaving nothing to chance. I know this because a part of the spec, they're actually, which I thought was a brilliant idea, they're actually taking a GPS point of the corpse stop while they have the hole open, and a GPS point of the service box, because they want both points, because one's at the property line, one's in the street. That's going, and Chuck, those guys, Chicago's already on top of it, and Chicago's doing the right thing. They're going from the street in, because once you open it up, you're opening it up. What difference does it make? I agree with your friend.
Right. Your friend, the guys that we know. I mean, you either running things fast and loose, or you're going to be doing the right thing. And it's just, and I've seen both be successful. I've seen a lot of different utility directors over the years, like you have, and you've really got to decide where your management wants to fall on this. And I'm with you. I want people to be doing the right things. If it's my house with my kids, or where my kids are going to be, or a rental that they've got, or someplace they're going to stay, absolutely, the risks are too much. So that's a key thing. So and then I've got some that say, look, we're going to be putting our inventories in. We're going to just assume it's the same pipe material as ours. And I think there's just going to come a day. Someone will be knocking the door, and it may not be the EPA. It could be a realtor that comes to the building, to the permit desk. Hey, I need a certification that this private property doesn't have lead. I understand the water company has published this. Could you send me a piece of paper? And if it's wrong, you'll be liable for that. Is that okay? I see this as big tobacco of the scale of some of the negative things that can happen. You see the backlash that a Providence or another city gets for high lead readings, and PFAS. Oh my gosh! What did we just read in the latest USGS report? We only have the capability of testing 32 different PFAS, right? Lead is not one of them. There are over 20,000 different chemicals, and we can only test for 32 of them. I mean, this is going to be this is full employment.
Right.
Anybody
the PFAS thing fix is changing the treatment cycle. And
that's it.
It's a treatment thing. we have the luxury and the technology to, as some of the expert treatment guys out there will say, we have the ability. It only costs money, but we can treat anything and clean anything out of our water. And I know that to be true. It costs money. So that's, again, it's another hill that the water department has to climb.
Did Detroit, Michigan get it right off the bat? The study. What I was learning is they ripped out the lead services right away. They were like, we're replacing it completely out. They ripped it all out, and they didn't want to have that Flint, Michigan kind of I guess their name out there, right, in the media.
I don't know. I don't know if Detroit's done or not.
Okay.
But I mean, they've been, yes, they didn't wait for testing. Detroit didn't want to be the next poster child. So yes, they started on mitigation and removal right away. Basically, in about 16, they started. And Chicago started several years ago as well. That's why that's like I said, the next bid group was being awarded. They're just doing it. They're just not waiting for, and they still may want to do. I've been talking to them because they still want to possibly do some testing and studying, because they're still looking at stuff. Nobody has all the answers or all the consequences. Contrary to popular belief, nobody has all the answers.
Right.
Because again, a long time ago, it was never documented because it was never considered an important issue because it was owned by the customer.
Right.
That's, and that's just an old-fashioned thing from a long, long time ago. So again, can't pick on anybody on our string of commenters or anybody listening. They didn't invent those rules. They're just now having to deal with those rules. So
the other thing I want to mention is don't just focus on LCRR. We got a lot of consultants on this call, and I'm going to tell you, get a little wider landscape here. We have dozens, hundreds. I've seen a number up to 1,000 projects that are now adopting AMR. How long has AMR been around? 30 years.
Right.
So what we're finding, we're just about to get a large contract with a city, going through the entire city, adopting AMR. That means they're going to have to go to every meter. They're going to be taking off their meter, putting something on. Boom. Right then and there. Having an electroscan crew or authorized or my Emmy Simpson crew coming in behind and doing a test, bundling that in as part of your AMR. Easy success story. So you can have two done at the same time. So if your city is considering an AMR, and I know supply chain issues are having a bit of problem. In fact, I know of at least 5 projects today where the AMR has stopped because they've got projects where they can't get some of the materials, some of the printed circuit boards. So this is they've got crews kind of waiting out there. They absolutely could do that. Test for lead just to see where that is. Complete those things at the same time. So I can see it. So look at the other opportunities that you're doing. I see a lot of folks shifting from their leak detection. We've got climate change. So in California, we've got all the dams are overflowing. So it's not leak detection anymore. It's lead detection. Put off the dollars that you were going to dedicate to leak detection. We have an abundance of water now. Shift that over for the year. Shift that over for 2 years. Whatever you're going to spend on one, spend on the other. Help that out so you can get those things going. So I think that there's a lot of little things that you can do right now. We have multi-year cycles for billing and CapEx. It's just an easy way to think about it.
We're gonna, Mike. Let's wrap this up towards the end here. We got a couple more minutes. Anything to add, Mike, before we?
No, I think we've kind of, as I call it, beat a dead horse to death. Everybody knows what they've got to do. They've just got to, decide how they're going to attack it and what methodology they're going to use. And selfishly, I'm going to promote the methodology that I think is the best answer with the least amount of risk. But then I'm selfish, and I freely admit it. So you can all write me emails to michael@mesimpson.com and tell me what a selfish person I am. I fully respect that. And I'll love you anyway. No questions asked. So,
awesome.
But people get your inventories together and turn them in. Don't worry if you have bunches of unknowns. Just start laying out your plan to find out what those unknowns are over the next 4 years, so that by 2027, when you start your mitigation, you've got most of it done. And then you can start your removal process and take them out and put in new,
Good
and
stuff.
yes, when you're doing it, I'm with Chuck. If you're going to open the patient up, go to the corp out in the street and come forward into the house. Just don't waste time. Do not waste your time. You're already there.
And by the way, let's not do what
sense.
the UK is doing. I see Brad Weston's here. It was I think it was 2013. On a single day, the water utilities took over all the private property water and sewer pipes. So I don't know if anybody realizes that. Maggie Thatcher had privatized the UK water system in the 80s, 89, 90, 91. But in 2013, all the water companies became responsible for the property service lines.
Wow.
There were a few exceptions, but look what's happened. We now have private equity firms owning all the water companies over there. They're taking on, assuming large amounts of debt, paying huge bonuses to their shareholders, and kind of pulling back on capex. So a big problem that really should not have happened. So that's why you're seeing some of the CEOs in the UK exiting their suites over there. So I'm not advocating that utilities take over theirs, but I am seeing some of the larger and even some of the smallest cities, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. They're surrounded by 30, 40 smaller water companies. Hey, we may not be able to afford different tools. Can we use your tool to do ours? Can we partner up? Can we have the smaller utilities? Sacramento has 17 water companies, including California American Water Company. So, the smaller ones can really look and use the jet stream of what some of the larger utilities are doing. So helping out this industry has always done that.
Regionalization and teaming together as a group sometimes pays
Huge.
off in dividends, because
and we're
volume helps.
And we're all three ratepayers. So this has got to be for the ratepayers. And just think about what they're doing, giving them value for money. This is it. Time to put on, big boy, big girl pants and make it happen.
Wow. I mean, guys, this has been enlightening. You guys have so much experience and information that you're sharing with everybody, and totally appreciate all this. It's really humbling to hear and learning from you guys. One thing that's for sure is infrastructure, water and sewer infrastructure is no longer out of sight, out of mind. You can see all these articles coming out. It is all over the news now. It is not a place where you just want to ignore it. If you're a utility owner, do not ignore this stuff, because it's going to eventually come back to probably haunt you. So we strongly encourage you to talk to the experts, get information, reach out to different sources, find the information out, and then make strategic decisions on what you're going to do with your utilities. That's what you got to do. And
you do.
These guys are
And our next show, Chuck and I will be telling you how I'm going to solve all your infiltration problems. So we're going to switch utilities, and we're going to do sewer next time, just to keep it fresh, because we've beaten you up about lead. Now Chuck and I'll explain to you why you want what we're going to do to make your infiltration problems go away.
Good stuff.
Early retirement, and come work for Mike and I. So
there you go. So, thank you all, the audience. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time. We're going to put in the articles that we were talking about, mentioning the images that you sent me, Chuck. I'm going to share those in the comment section. All that stuff you shared.
And please make sure you put the usepa.gov website or link to that, because people it's an easy button to go to. It'll explain it all to you. It's dry material, but the details there, devil's in the details.
It is, man.
Appreciate everybody listening in. And if you need something, hit Chuck or I up on LinkedIn, or like I said, Michael at mesimpson.com. Send me an email. I'll help. So
I think we just solved all the world's problems for water
right,
source.
of course. That's what Chuck and I are here
Go
for.
That's it.
That's what if they let Chuck and I be in charge, things would be much better.
That's right. That's right. Well,
Have more
thank
fun.
you guys. Yeah, go
We
ahead.
have a better time.
See you next time.
We'll see you
See you
guys.
guys.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much. Have a
Thanks,
great
everybody.
day.
Thanks so much.